So the WhyLabs team has been working on a integration, WhyLogs integration, and with Flyte. And so with that, Murilo, if you could unmute yourself and introduce yourself, and the stage is yours.
Nice. I'm gonna try to keep this under, I don't know, 5 or 10 minutes, but I'm Murilo. I'm an ML engineer in WhyLabs. I've been there since April, and I'm based in Brazil. This is why my name is funny, but if you cannot pronounce the R, go with the regular Murilo. It works as well. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about WhyLogs first, and then why did we integrate with Flyte, and why does this matter for users, right? So WhyLogs is the open standard for data logging, as we call it, and it basically takes snapshots of your data, and it allows you to just keep track of what's happening with the relevant or statistical information across like different timelines, or however you want to do this, right? There are 3 main components or 3 main characteristics in WhyLogs that to me makes it stand out from the other existing tools. That is, it's very efficient, so we can create these snapshots, this information, this metadata very quickly and also very accurately, because we look at every data point instead of just sampling and losing out some information with outliers and so on. It's customizable, so it allows you to keep track of different things, not only statistical info, but also some more complex stuff that comes in, say, when you're logging images or text and so on and so forth. So you can customize that. You can bring along also performance metrics, which is not related to a table, but it's related to how your model is performing, and you can just bring that along as well. And the last thing is its mergeability. So you can create a snapshot today with your entire data set, but then tomorrow, when you just ingest a new, or you append a new data set there to your pipeline, you can basically merge that to your existing profiles. And this is done with sketching. This is the approach that we use, right? And this opens way for you to just use distributed systems such as Spark or Ray or whatever. You can create profiles in the workers and then append everything back into the driver. Or you can even attach this to your streaming pipelines and just create micro batches there, and then just append those together and keep analyzing and monitoring your data in the end of the day, right? To create these snapshots, can I share my screen, by the way, Martin?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. When you can see, let me know. Then,
yep.
Yeah, okay. So to log your data sets, we try to do this as quickly as possible with our newest Python API. So basically, you have to pass in a pandas data frame or other structures here, and you basically call y.log. And this will create the snapshot that I mentioned with predefined metrics. It brings in a bunch of information on distribution or frequent items and so on and so forth, depending on your data types. And it was a good idea for us to be able to just ingest and just pass along in Flyte tests. So this was the first integration point that we had with Flyte. I can actually show the code here that does that. But basically, we can create a profile view doing exactly what I showed you in our docs page. Let me just, yeah, I'm not sure if this is bigger or small, but
it's good.
I'm wishing you guys can see it. But basically, you just can ingest a data frame and then return a data set profile view, which is the object that we call. And this ability is the first integration point. So you can just profile once and do whatever we can do with WhyLogs profiles afterwards, such as building a constraints report. So you can run a bunch of different verifications to, is your column greater than this number, or is your mean between a certain range, or do you have a certain null count or a percentage of nulls there? Anyways, and then we have like built here a renderer that allows you to just append to your existing task a deck that is going to neatly represent if your constraints passed or not. So this is very useful for users to just see if it validated or not, and then pass along, for example, a Boolean or whatever they like here, but also have in this task a presentation deck, sort of, that can be analyzed and visually inspected to further see if the constraints passed or not. And lastly, there's also one thing that we built, which is the summary drift report renderer that can take in two data frames, basically. One is the reference data frame that you say, this is the ground truth, and this is the new data that I'm ingesting. So I want to compare both of those guys. And you can also just append this to an existing FlyteDeck, and this will just give you some information of how your data is behaving, like just like that, right? And here I just created a workflow that tries to mimic what would be a typical workflow. And I already ran this because we didn't want to spend too much time waiting on everything to be built and ran here. But basically what I did was get the target data, create a profile view, pass this to the constraints report, and then if the constraints passed, we can make the predictions, or if it fails, we can just look into the summary drift report. And this is basically it, right? We can take different actions based on different use cases, but just to demo this, what the constraints report look like, we can click here and watch our FlyteDeck, and we see that everything's passed. And if we want to filter down to the failed constraints, or just the fail, we see there's nothing here, right? But in this other example where I intentionally just created something that is not passing, we can also inspect here. Okay, so S3 mean between 1.3 and 1.5 is failed. So we know what we failed in the different checks that we configured earlier. And also, as I showed you here in the graph, when we just failed this report, we're just going to build this summary drift report. So we can inspect also what does it look like, what does the distribution look like? Is it because of drift in how our data is behaving, and so on and so forth? And we can just visually inspect this. There's also some other metrics here that if I'm successful enough, I can inspect. Yes. Yeah, okay, so this is not exactly rendering as I wanted, because there's a newer version that fixes this bug. But anyways, you get the picture. This is just a very useful and powerful way of visually inspecting what happens with your data sets or your ML predictions, and take actions with that. And this is very powerful. This is going to enable users to just act more responsibly in their data pipelines. And this is why we integrated WhyLogs with Flyte.
Fantastic.
If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer as well.
Great, that's really good. So congrats, awesome integration. So what's the current status? Where can users actually start testing and grabbing the pieces? So tell us a little bit about availability and the next steps. What else is it's
already merged into the main branch of FlyteKit. I'm not sure if it's released yet in the newest version of Flyte, but it's already merged, so users can just go ahead and grab the latest version of the repo and just start building it. It's under the plugin section there. It's documented. I hope it's well documented. If it's not, let me know. We can just iterate on that.
Good. No, fantastic. I like the summary drift report. I assume you can actually also configure your own metrics in there and see the drift on some of the metrics that you configure. I mean, that's really super helpful, because ground truth is one thing, but that's really kind of like really the snapshot. And then doing this iteratively down the road when you get new data and see what has happened, that I think is really a perfect place to show FlyteDecks and the presentation layer and the render that you have in FlyteDeck. So I think this is a fantastic example. I love it.
Yeah, thank you.
Murilo, also, can you just put the call to action in the chat? Just like it's pip install FlyteKit plugins -WhyLogs, right? That's
of course. Let me just grab our documentation, but also I can just I can just post here in the chat the actual command for us to use that.
Yeah. I think though, I wanted to say that the WhyLogs team is doing amazing stuff, just really cool things. And thank you for the integration. Murilo is a rock star, so thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.